Is it going to be 38?
There you go.
It is still now 7:37, so we will call the meeting to order. First, I just want to thank everyone for making it tonight. I know that it's starting to rain and conditions are starting to look a little bad outside, so appreciate you being here. First, we need to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Those are, should be online, right? Yeah. And those are available on our website and online.
I move to approve last week's minutes.
All right. Second, all in favor? Any opposing? Any abstentions? All right, all in favor. Clay, would you like to introduce?
Yeah, sure. So we got agenda item 3. We have some of the project leads for the graduate student survey that we've been building all this year. The project leads are working with the advanced research consultants on campus to actually conduct and analyze the data that we collect from the survey. And so we brought them in tonight. You potentially, hopefully got the pre-notice email that they sent out earlier today. And they will be managing, like I said, the solicitation, gathering all that data and the analysis of it. And so with that introduction, I'll kick it over to you, Chastity Belosh.
So I'm Chastity Ratliff, and this is Belosh, and we are with Applied Research Consultants. It's a student-run research consulting firm on campus. And so we're handling the GPSC survey. Did everyone get their pre-notice email today? Okay, if you didn't get it, maybe check your spam folder if you haven't received emails like that from Qualtrics, which is the survey software that we're using. It might have gone to your spam folder. So we have everything ready to go. The HSC looked over the survey and reviewed it. Didn't need to approve it because they say it's just a quality improvement survey, so that's even better. It's going to be launching a week from today. So a week from today, you all and every graduate and professional student on campus will get the survey link in their email. It should only take about 15-20 minutes to complete. I think we got it down to make it a reasonable amount of time for you to take it. And then we'll be analyzing the data, answering any questions as they come in. You would just email ARC, which is in the pre-notice and will be in the other emails and all the information. That's kind of the gist of it. Do you all have questions for us?
Is it unique? So to verify that we have an accurate reading, is it address, like if someone can't take it twice, correct?
Someone could technically take it twice.
Okay.
We don't expect people to do that. The only way we could stop that from happening would be to limit the use of computers, and a lot of people go to use computers in the library, and so we wouldn't want to.
Of course.
We could also turn on the.
Oh no, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Actually, it can actually avoid the inbox stuffing. So what it would do is per email, if it's clicked once, that's what it would do. So what you might want to avoid doing is actually, if you got the email and if you find out that someone else didn't get the email, rather than forwarding it to them, because it would not work like that. So actually that feature would be on there. So if that's the case, it would not actually allow, it can limit a person to take a survey as many times as we want, which would be one.
Okay.
But if someone does not receive that email, so you are representatives of your, of your department, so see if you can get in touch with Clay and they could let us know. So that way it also keeps the confidentiality on your side, so then it keeps confidentiality on our side as well. And the survey reminders will also go through, so everybody will receive the link over and over. As for, if you take this survey after the first distribution, I believe you will not get the reminder because you're already done with it. If you do, we'll just thank you for your time. So,
Great. And then also, I know that this sometimes comes up, even though it's not a horribly long survey, but if someone has to leave or close out for any reason, will that eliminate their opportunity? I guess not. I mean, because they can take it again, it wouldn't. They'd have the opportunity.
They can. So as long as they reuse that, the link will close out once the survey is complete. So if they do decide to turn it off and come back again, they should be able to access the survey once again.
Right.
So that would not be a problem. So it'll just bring them to the point where they are.
Where they were. It should bring them right back to where they closed out of it.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah. Any more questions, concerns?
All right. Well, so if you develop any additional questions, like they've said, you can contact the advanced research consultants directly through that email that you're getting in the pre-notice email and the future solicitation email. As an alternative, you can reach out to myself through the email provided with GPSC, and then essentially I will connect you with the advanced research consultants. But as far as the solicitation, the gathering of data, it's going to be done through the actual consulting firm, and so in that capacity, we'll be connecting you with who it is that can help you, or one of your constituents in the department, or any sort of requests on their behalf. We'll get you connected. If you're confused, you can reach out to me through the email, contact information, office hours that we have. So.
I'll be keeping an eye on those emails too, and we'll try to get back to respond to any of them within a day, very latest. I'll be keeping a good eye on those in case questions do pop up, especially during the first week. And we're applied research consultants, not advanced.
All right,
I mean,
sorry,
advanced sounds pretty cool,
yeah.
but just don't want them trying to find some other consulting firm on campus. But yeah, if you have any questions, want to shoot us an email, like we're happy to field all of those questions.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Enjoy your meeting. I'll be in touch.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah. Good.
You want to move to the next slide?
All right. Moving to the next item. Anything else, Ty?
No, that's
All right. So next on our agenda, we have a presentation and discussion on the proposed Title IX training. Lauren will be leading this discussion.
So when John's pulling up the PowerPoint, I'll just go ahead and explain to y'all basically what I'm doing here. So I want to present the proposed training programs that my committee is forwarding to the university to replace the current consent and respect training. So all of you should have taken that. Most people hate it. Most of us don't know what's in it because it's not particularly applicable to most audiences, and you can just click through it. So I'll tell you when to switch. So the reason that I'm talking to you all about this is I need feedback from students. I've been tasked with writing the proposal that will end up on the chancellor's desk. And there's already concern about, do we have enough money, things like that. And so the more student input I have about this, the easier it is to advocate, because otherwise, right, this training is for students. And the graduate students, because you all deal with the majority of mandatory reporting and things like that. Students are more likely to come to us with issues regarding sexual assault and harassment. Your input is super important because you have more of you're kind of a liaison between admin and faculty and undergraduates. So I'll basically be talking to you all about why this is important, the culture of respect, which is where this is coming from, the committee that I am the head of, and the process by which we went through all of this, and then the recommendations. This shouldn't take too terribly long. And I'm sorry if this is a terrible presentation. I just got done with prelims, so this is kind of by the seat of my pants.
Mini clap for getting done with prelims? Yeah. Way to get done with prelims. Nice.
Just feel like a bad speech teacher right now because I know that you're looking at this. All right, you can switch. That's the wrong slide. That's all right. We'll skip that slide. I'll just tell y'all. So the reason that I hope that this will interest you all, even if it seems like it doesn't matter to you, just for context, SIU has one of the highest rates of sexual assault in the state. We, in 2014, reported 16 sexual assaults out of 18,000 students. In comparison to Illinois State University, they have 20,000 students and only reported 12. And Northern Illinois University also has 20,000 students and only reported 15. So we have a smaller population, yet reported significantly more than those two schools did. Additionally, there is a 100% likelihood that people in this room have experienced assault, so this directly affects your peers. Additionally, many of us are still in the age where sexual assault is likely to occur, and sexual harassment is very common in academia, particularly for graduate students. And most, if not all of you, are mandatory reporters, which means that you need to know what this training is about, what it means for you as a mandatory reporter, what students will know about this process. Those are all things that should be important to you, and you all represent mandatory reporters. Additionally, it gives you a better perspective on these sort of matters than you'll probably get from administrators, because I'm in the know on the entire process because I did the entire process, and also I need your help, so that's why you should care. Now you can go. All right. So the Culture of Respect, just briefly, is a national program that was started in 2013 to bring all of the resources together on sexual assault, specifically geared towards college campuses. So the university basically purchases access to their resources, and then they get guidance on how to specifically tackle sexual assault on their campuses and other Title IX related issues. And one of the main suggestions is that the Culture of Respect committees on their campuses should bring together all of the assets. So that includes the legal team, research, people who have research about it, prevention education, violence prevention, higher education policy, survivor support, activists, police, all sorts of people are involved in this effort, undergraduates, graduate students, and a variety of people. It's currently housed under the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, NASPA, and has been there since 2016 because of efforts by Biden and Obama to work on these issues. Part of the problem with Culture of Respect currently is that we lack student involvement. I'm the only student who showed up in a year. So that gives you an indication of where it stands on really getting stakeholders involved. As people have started leaving the campus, we haven't really replaced them, particularly people who know a lot about students, like the LGBTQ Resource Center director. When he left, we didn't replace him. Student rights and responsibilities used to be on it. They're no longer represented. So I just really need student involvement in this process. So this is me getting you to be involved. All right, so the process, I'll go through really quickly. In 2016 and 17, we started this. I was appointed as the graduate student representative because sexual assault on college campuses is my research area. So it was originally headed by John Massey. John Massey was, I will be completely frank with y'all because I can, not great at really leading what we were trying to do. We were supposed to conduct a survey where every single one of the people on the committee was involved. They decided that took too long, so 2 people ended up filling out a survey that at least 20 people should have been filling out together. Fortunately, though, this year it's now headed by Jennifer Jones-Hall, who is wonderful in her capacity on this committee and has really turned it around. So there's really no reason for us to cause a problem with all of the survey stuff because Jennifer's got us covered. So what we did on the first meeting when she came in the fall was review the survey results and then break up into 4 separate committees based upon the the categories that we found results for in the survey process, if that makes sense. I'll send around something to help y'all with this. Just as a note, don't give these back to me. I was asked not to talk about this, but I did not sign an NDA, and you all deserve to know because students need to have input on what's happening. So our scores were relatively low, as most people should not be surprised. For survivor support, we scored a 61 out of 165. For clear policies, we scored a 62 out of 102. For multi-tiered education, we scored a 42 out of 109. Public disclosure, we scored a 39 out of 119. Campus-wide mobilization, we scored a 5 out of 48. And ongoing assessment, we scored an 11 out of 28. So we didn't meet even 50% in the majority of these. There are 5 categories in this survey. We only broke into 4 categories because I suggested that we combine the multi-tiered education and campus-wide mobilization categories into one committee, which is the committee that I am the chair of. So if y'all have any questions so far, I talk fast and it's a big process.
Well, the public disclosure, was that on the university for just total lack of?
Some of that, to be transparent, is a lack of understanding from the police side that the police have to meet very specific requirements for it to become a disclosable offense. So, for example, if someone comes to us and says, hey, I was assaulted a month ago, that probably does not meet the standard for public disclosure because it's not a current threat. It didn't happen that time. There's been no other reports, so we don't have any reason to believe it's serial, although most assaulters are serial, but that's neither here nor there. So public disclosure does have a lot to do with just not understanding the process, but it does, that survey result does offer a lot of feedback for the university because it shows that even people, stakeholders, do not understand that process. And it also can send a signal to the national government that like maybe we should change our processes by a public disclosure because we know more is happening than we were publicly learning about. So in 2014, if you were here, you most likely did not get 20 emails letting you know that someone had either been assaulted or fondled. So that's yeah. I say those separately because that's how the national government separates them. They should be in the same category, but does that answer your question?
Oh yeah.
Any others? Count to 7 in my head. Cool. All right. You can switch. Oh, that was the slide I was just on. You can switch again. Okay, so this is the process that I am most familiar with. So my committee, the Multi-Tiered Education and Campus-Wide Mobilization Subcommittee, where we have some people in here who are on that committee, so thank you for your service, Lindy, Katie. Am I missing anyone? No, okay. So they can also answer questions for you. So what we did first is the Culture of Respect on the NASPA website has a list of programs that they suggest looking at. And so we reviewed this entire list of education programs by the Culture of Respect. The programs are classified in 3 ways. So there's by effectiveness. So the 3 categories are emerging direction, which means that we're not really sure, but it looks like it's going in the right direction. Promising direction, which indicates that it is definitely moving in the right direction, but there's no proof of effectiveness. And then there's supported by evidence, which is proof that that the program is effective at reducing students' adherence to rate meds, increasing their likelihood to be active bystanders, things like that. So we researched all of these programs that were labeled as promising direction and supported by evidence. Only those categories that were online training are the ones that we looked at for this part of the process. We're going to deal with things that aren't online later because, frankly, online training does very little for students. But the university requires, essentially because the size of it, that we have to have an online training program because it's impossible to get the thousands of students on campus to make sure that in an in-person training that they've all taken it. The online basically lets us know that we've met a benchmark, to be quite honest. And it is the most effective way to make sure that we're meeting Title IX requirements. And as we know, the university is not so great on Title IX at the moment. So we reviewed 7 programs and we selected 5 as finalists. When we were considering how we wanted to determine like what programs we would select, beyond the categories that are talked about within the Culture of Respect, we had specific concerns such as the cost of the program. I'll get into cost in a second. The length of the training, so how, like, does it take 45 minutes or 30 minutes, that sort of stuff. Proof of effectiveness, which I've already covered. Inclusion of gender, sexuality, and race as like topics that they cover. Most of them are from a very white heterosexual perspective, and therefore leaves out a lot of populations who are least likely to report and more likely to experience assault. So that's one thing we looked at. We wanted to know if they educate students about bystander intervention, which is, do they teach students to like intervene if they see something that might lead to assault or harassment? Rape myth debunking, so does it teach students about like myths that they have about sexual assault? And then we also wanted to see if it covered alcohol, stalking, and intimate partner violence, because those are all related issues that often don't get talked about and are often influencing factors for sexual assault. So that's obviously an important thing to look at. So of the 5 programs as finalists, I went and on my own talked to each of the programs' directors or their representatives or salespeople, because I know that it's particularly important to get a feel for how a company is going to sell you something. So just like you're not going to buy a car from someone who's clearly fucking you over, You're not going to do that with the training program either. So if someone seems to be super shady or too pushy or things like that, you can kind of get a feel for what they really know about the subject, things like that, which is why I did online, or why I did phone conversations with them. So eventually my subcommittee recommended 4 training programs to the Culture of Respect's larger committee. Is everyone up with me on that, how that's working? Okay. All right. So the context for how we decided on the MTCM recommendations was first the price. So to give you an indication, right now we are paying $2,000 annually for the consent and respect training. We pay $25,000 annually, or $75,000 for a 4-year contract for the Workplace Answers program that you all just got an email about. I don't know if law students get it. I think you probably do though. It's the EverFi training, super boring. They're like, don't give gifts to people. And that training,
Oh, I got that, yeah.
I don't think we did that one.
it's very ineffective, all text-based. It basically is like, don't do work for another job at the university, a bunch of things like that. We pay $75,000 for that, and it goes out to less people than the consent and respect training does. So that gives you an indication of where the money's going and how we value these things. The other thing that we needed to look at is that the program has to meet Section 30 of the Public Act 099-0426, which is just Title IX.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of programs that you're saying that are paid different money for, are those all from the same departments? What departments?
Different departments.
Okay, so, I mean, who prioritizes what is what?
I would assume whoever sends out the budgets determines how much Title IX gets versus other offices.
The
Chancellor?
Well, yes and no. The Workplace Answers is an ethics compliance test, and if I would be super blunt, the institution keeps failing audits by the Auditor General of the state of Illinois. It's done so almost on a biannual basis for a variety of weird things, not logging equipment, not reporting monies collected from
But
student program. I'm getting there in a second. Things like that. So there's an institutional priority for particular kinds of training for particular kinds of stakeholders, e.g. the people who work at the institution, GAs, things like that. There's a kind of institutional priority for providing what they view as the most effective training to prevent that kind of issue. Those budgets are generally controlled somewhere in the Chancellor's office, either by Judy Marshall's office or whomever, and they come together and decide which is the priority for what funding.
are any of those, does IBHE have any control
No.
over saying how much money allocates to where?
No, that's an internal institutional matter, and since the Chang Dynasty, when they dismantled the Associate Chancellor for Institutional Diversity's office, the asset has some input, but it doesn't have direct oversight over the kind of training, that kind of thing. Some of that stuff is trying to be changed, but for now, it's a decision made outside of the realm of the folks who theoretically should be making those decisions.
So answer? Okay. So yeah, it has to meet Title IX, essentially the things that Section 30 of the Public Act say, that all programs must meet 1 through 4 because they're generally they have to meet that we tell students in the training program who their Title IX officer is, that sort of stuff, the very basic things, and that all programs must meet strategies for bystander intervention and risk reduction, which is not defined. That's a problem. So Title IX requires very little in terms of what has to be in the training. They make a point to say like this should be considered like very rudimentary, and universities are encouraged to go above and beyond. So since online was a requirement, that's how we got with the online programs. I'll skip this slide after this one and go to the next one. I'll tell them that at the end. All right, so real quickly, Haven is a program that is also hosted by EverFi, which is the same company that we use for Workplace Answers. So the training that we pay $75,000 for a 4-year contract or whatever is the same company that hosts Haven. We went ahead and cut Haven immediately. We assumed that we would, but it costs $42,000 a year, and you have to pay for a 3-year contract at the very least. We also pushed because, as I mentioned earlier, they had really crappy sales techniques. They lied. They tried to guilt us into using them because they're supposed to be the best of the best. They also claim to have the only proven program to be effective, but all of their research is done in-house, even though they say it's not. It's not. It is done in-house. So if you have questions, you can ask. And it's all text-based. It's just a PowerPoint. So if you're bored right now, you're definitely going to be bored in the Haven training program. And essentially, it would have been just paying more for the same thing we already have. Yeah. Next slide. So, not anymore. These are the next 3 programs I'll go over are the ones that are still in Culture of Respect right now. Not anymore costs anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. There are multiple modules that are self-guided, and they kind of change based upon what answer you give to them. It's survivor-centered with a diverse representation. They have... Oh, sorry, I got confused for a second. It's survivor-centered, but with that, some people, particularly in psychology, have pointed out that it may be really triggering for survivors. As a survivor, I do tend to agree with not anymore, or with the psychologist's perspective of this, but we are going to talk to them about whether or not they can tailor the program. To give you an indication, Consent and Respect already has a lot of people who request to opt out of it because even that program is triggering, and so this one would be significantly harder on persons who have experienced assault. There's a variety of additional online programs available that would only cost $1,000 to $5,000 more depending on how many we get. But that's not anymore for employees, so I think employees should probably be trained about assault and harassment. Not anymore alcohol and other drugs. A lot of studies indicate that the sexual assault trainings are ineffective if we're not also talking about alcohol specifically, which is why you can tack that on. And then not anymore for campus leaders. This is their, I believe, fraternity-specific program, so we would be able to get that. And some fraternities do require that they have an additional training beyond what the university offers, so that can be useful for fraternities. It's also somewhat customizable in that we can ask them to tailor some things in it. We can pick, they've got a certain amount of primary modules, which are the ones that students have to get, and then there are secondary modules. We can pick from those of which we think would be best for our university. And then one reason we included it is SIUE uses this program. It was helpful for them to know that SIUE is doing a relatively good job on questions of diversity and inclusion, and if they're spending this much, we probably should be spending that much too. Certainly not only $2,000.
If I may, SIU's selection of training programs came out of the 4 or so year process of developing the diversity plan by their diversity council. So, yeah.
You can go to the next one. Think Love and Think Drink is a pretty cool program as well. It only costs $5,000 because they maintain a nonprofit status. It is run by Katie Kostner, who was one of the first women to come forward and talk about date rape on college campuses in the 80s. So she's got a cover of Time. She's on the cover of Time magazine in the 80s. She's one of the experts in this field. The program is video based, so it's like a TV show, which we mentioned was really useful for students because it is like a sitcom, in that it's like a TV show that says here's how sexual assault normally happens or sexual harassment really happens, so that students can see it in an entertaining format, but also be able to say, oh, I've seen this happen before, and understand the intricacies of it. One person did note, however, that the videos appear to be a tad bit classist, and I will agree. There's one video that's I think several white women with Louis Vuitton purses doing very sort of classist behavior, talking about shopping and stuff, which I do think is an important thing to point out because if students can't identify with the characters in the TV, they could be like, oh, this is something that doesn't happen with us. So that's something to point out. Good thing about this one is they also give out a demographic survey before students take the training, so that based upon the students' demographics, the program will be tailored to their demographics. So research shows that like different people don't report for different reasons, and that a myriad of identities can affect that. And so it's really, that is a really cool thing about this program, because it can really target the different ways in which assault and harassment affect different bodies. And then it also allows us to incorporate feedback. So if we were to do a survey on campus, I'll get you just a second, Derek. If we do a survey on campus and we find that students really think that all rapists are strangers, then we can tailor the program to combat that specific adherence to rape myths. And then they also offer face-to-face resources, which are basically in-person lectures. My understanding is that Katie Kostner has come here several times, so I think we might already have a working relationship. I don't know if that's just rumor. I haven't confirmed it yet. But they do have face-to-face resources, which is a really important part of my committee, because we're not only trying to get online programs, we're also trying to get in-person trainings and performances and all sorts of things that are proven to be more effective.
Is the demographic survey based on student response?
Yeah, so the student will say, like, it'll ask, like, what is your race, what is your religion, things like that, and then it tailors it based upon.
So with this one, if not a lot of people respond, it wouldn't be as effective.
They have to respond.
They have to respond.
Yeah, because, like, well, this is the training that would be required.
Okay, all right.
And so, like, if they don't respond, the university puts a hold on their
Okay.
accounts. And you can't do the training without responding. You do bring up an important point. Some people have talked about how the demographic survey may make people feel more uncomfortable about the training, because like giving so much identifying information in something that we generally consider anonymous can feel very threatening, particularly for survivors. So, yeah, next one. And so the last one is You Got This. This one costs between $16,000 and $19,000, but I recently found out that it is very negotiable. It was originally a performance-based program, but it had so much success that a university started asking the performance troupe to turn it into an online program, so they did so with hesitance, but they did it anyways. And so this program is really neat because it uses humor, sarcasm, and it's like a very straightforward method, which is totally different than any other program you'll see. So for example, if a student answers a question and it shows that they adhere to a rape myth, the narrator will kind of be like, no, you know that's not right. Here's why. And so it's very much about like confronting the actual issue rather than kind of talking around it or not confronting it at all, which makes this program particularly unique. Some people did point out that they felt like it felt a little harsh, but that because of their position on campus, it was someone in psychology, to be completely honest. And so they admitted that because their job is based in like helping people talk about these issues, that the harshness can be off-putting for them because they generally adhere to like nonviolent sort of communication tactics, and this one is much more about just getting on students' levels and calling shit out. So it also includes more than online training. So with the $16,000 to $19,000, we would get pedagogical materials that people can use in their classrooms. So you all would get access to materials that you can use to extend those conversations into your classrooms. It also is customizable to the needs of the university. So again, if we conducted a survey and found something out, then they would be able to tailor their program to that. They also have a Train the Trainer, which is at a somewhat of an additional cost to train students on campus to do the performance that they originally had before turning it into an online program. And so this one is probably the most bang for our buck. That's my opinion on that one. And then also, it's none of these are the same every single year. I forgot to point that out. So what we've been getting is you literally get the exact same thing every single year. Won't do this. A first-year student will get something, and then second-year students will get something that builds upon what they had last year. This is probably the only one that offers continuing education throughout the semester, so it's easier to build, because it's not like you took this a year ago, now let's build on the thing that's probably out of your brain by now. Okay, we move on. So the next steps for my committee is to write a proposal for the chancellor. I said that I would do this because I'm the most familiar with all of this, plus the research that goes with it. We also need to research peer education programs. So those are the more in-person, performance-based, where students are teaching each other, or we're teaching students, or however we decide to do it. We'll make a recommendation for in-person performance and mixed methods-based trainings, develop a strategy for faculty education. Faculty are very bad at this. They have been trained under Chang's administration to be very objective with students and be like, I can't help you with this. You just need to, I'm just reporting it to Title IX and leaving them there, which discourages students from reporting and means that a lot of survivors will end up dropping out of school or having significant mental health issues because they didn't get help and they were then interrogated by the Title IX office. And also, we will be soliciting more student feedback and participation in the process. That's why I'm here tonight. And you can move forward. So, things that you can do is first, you can join It's On Us. Some of you are already members of that. The committee is designed to give feedback to the culture of respect, to give student feedback to the culture of respect, and it has absolutely no administrative overhead, so we are completely independent of any, we don't have to play the politics of the game, essentially. If there's a significant problem with something that happens, so for example, if the chancellor says, we can't give this money, absolutely no way, we're going to stick with consent and respect, the It's On Us committee is designed to be able to speak back to that and say, like, no, as students, this is something that's needed, here's why. I am technically a co-chair of that, but I have taken a back seat because I recognize that my involvement with the other process means that I don't want to force that committee to do things that I would do, because I can do that all on my own. So that's that, but if you want to join, just let me know. You can request to see any of these training programs. I have modules for them. I have all of the data that they gave me, all of that sort of stuff. So if you want to look at them and give me specific feedback, you're more than welcome to do that. I 100% encourage it. That's why I came to talk to you. So please, even if every single one of you wants to see it, that is totally fine. I will let you do that. And then preferably to give me feedback before the upcoming Culture of Respect meeting, which I believe is February 24th. I just found out today what it is, but it's like the week of the 24th on Tuesday at 3. It's whatever day that is. And obviously you can understand what consent is and dismantle rape culture, because online training doesn't really do a whole lot. So yeah, if you want to give me feedback, if you want to see the training programs, if you don't want to see the training programs, but you think any of these were particularly enticing, and you just want to say like, hey, based upon what you've said, I'd recommend this one, let me know that too. And I think that's it. Questions?
Which of these would you currently recommend? The ones
You got
that-
this.
You got this,
Mhm.
right?
You Got This has been the most, just to give y'all an indication, I was hoping someone would ask that. You Got This has been the most straightforward about asking like, hey, we want to know if you don't select us, like why didn't you select us? Because we want to improve our program, which is very important. That means that they're willing to do the work even if we're not paying them to do it. And that's super important because you want a program that will work with you, that you don't just pay for something that then stays the same. And so that means that in some ways You Got This, to me, feels like a fail-safe is the wrong word, but if we were to get them, we could say, hey, what you gave us last year really was not helpful. Here's the feedback we got. Can you fix it? So if we find out we got them and we didn't love it, they're willing to change, which is wonderful for us.
Would it be helpful for this body to decide that we'd like to also back one of these as a collective?
Yes, but it would still be helpful if people would be willing to give me like specific feedback so I can take like student quotes and put them in a proposal.
Gotcha.
I don't really think the chancellor wants my opinion, so I need y'all's. Yeah. Anything else?
Do you want those emails sent to you personally, or to like GPSC to send to you?
Or you can send them to me personally. Everyone, my email is lauren.schaefer@siu.edu. It is LAURAN.SCHAEFER@siu.edu. That's really it. If you want to join a committee, let me know. You can join any of those subcommittees, although mine's the only one meeting anymore. You can join It's On Us, and you can, yeah, there are lots of things you can join that relate to this. Cool. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Lauren. Now moving on to item 5, academic reorganization.
Oh, sweet. This is the fun part. So, sorry, I'm actually kind of sick, so won't be as energetic as I normally am. So, this is the update to the academic reorg as of February the 5th. And it's exactly what it says on the 10th. All right, so what you've got on the screen right now is the proposed administrative structure for, or the current administrative structure. Basically, this is a weird generalization of the COLA admin structure with ASA and some other stuff. It's the most common way that this institution organizes its basic academic units. You have a dean, you have a pair of deanlets, you have a college council and a committee, you have chairs, directors, and then you have faculty committees, grad directors, undergrad directors, things like that. The chair currently with this structure, as indicated by this display, chair directors Alpha, Bravo, Delta, and Charlie all have curricular and fiscal control over their individual units. So, for example, if you wanted to change PhD distribution requirements, the faculty in a given department would drum up a proposal, they'd vote on it, they'd send it to the college council committee, say this is what we're doing. College council committee would be like, all right, cool, you know, let's send it to the deanlets. The deanlets would either, depending on the size of the unit, the deanlets would handle it or the dean would handle it, and then you go from there. None of that stuff ever reaches grad council, faculty, senate, because they don't need to vote on it, because these aren't program changes. These are curricular decisions that all happen at the department level as per the current operating papers. So everybody above Chair Director Bravo or Alpha through Charlie has no real authority over the curricular changes. They may ask questions about curricular changes, things like that, but they can't show up and say, no, you got to teach it this way. What the folks above, chair, directors, Alpha through Charlie, do have authority over are hires, budgetary things like that. The dean will allocate funds and tell the chairs and directors and college council committee how much money you're getting for your TA or GA funds, and then that money will be allocated down to the departments. For hires, usually to take COLA as a model, chairs and directors get together, generate a bunch of hires they want, and then there is some nebulous ranking process. So generally, like I said, curricular and fiscal control over a department rests with the chair or director of the department. This is listed as chair or director because some of these things are called programs and are program directors as per their operating papers. But realistically, as per the operating papers and the contracts, these two individuals, these administrators, have the same administrative authority. They get the same release time, so on and so forth. All right. So this is the proposed version, right? And the reason why I'm doing this for you guys now is because it's real important at this point. So this is the proposed version. Actually, as an aside, this does not matter to the School of Law. None of this actually matters to the School of Law because the way that you guys are set up under the ABA means that this doesn't work. I've checked your ops papers. I've read through it. I grilled Dave Dalala over email. It doesn't matter. They can't show up and do anything to you guys unless, well, even then they can't. Never mind. They can't do anything to you guys. So this is relatively unimportant with regards to structural changes for you guys. So this is the proposed administrative structure, colleges, schools, divisions. So this is what we get instead. You have a college dean, you have a school committee, you have school directors, division coordinators, Alpha through Bravo, and then you got faculty committees, blah, 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 blah. Primary difference is there is no administrative or fiscal control over departments below the school level. I'm going to say that again. There's no administrative or fiscal control over departments below the school level. So whereas in the previous model, department committees decided on, say, curricular or other such decisions, that happens at the school level now by a school committee formed of the school directors, which then reports to the dean, which then gives it to the administration, which then signs off on whatever the heck it is you want to do. Essentially what this is it allows non-specialists in a discipline to have input on curricular and programmatic decisions beyond their disciplines. So if we were going to use say humanities, for example, the chair or the school director, the school director for the School of Humanities would meet with the school director of Homeland Security and whomever else in the new COLA, and they would get together and talk about whether or not they want to allow English to change its PhD distribution requirements. Then they'd send that recommendation to the college dean. The college dean would forward it to the administration, and then folks would sign off on it. The other primary change is that school directors are now faculty with admin assignments, so they take up some of the work of the chairs. But your division coordinators, which are, and the administration can argue with me until they're blue in the face, it's not going to change my mind. The division coordinators or program directors are essentially department chairs who are not getting paid. So school directors are faculty with admin assignments. Division coordinators, which are functionally equivalent to department chairs, are faculty with service assignments. Faculty with service assignments are like your grad directors, your undergrad directors, those kinds of folks. They don't get paid to do that. They still have a full course load, but this time they're being asked to take up some of the administrative responsibility of a chair or a director. One of the things that has been noted by faculty is the school directors will probably get full course releases. You cannot ask a faculty member to do all of the responsibilities of the school director and still teach. A partial course release won't cover. That's like asking a dean to do dean stuff and still teach. No dean on this campus teaches, except for Dean Lee. So that's just an overview of what the reorganization will do to departments. I probably should have given you that earlier because it provides a lot of context for why we should probably be concerned about this. One, our faculty lose control over our curricular assignments and probably over our budgetary things if we're going to read it exactly on the tin, which is to say that the school committee would get to talk about which school gets what allocation from the overall budget of the college. This is a problem because the way that this is supposed to be governed is through the operating papers. The operating papers are subject in the new model to administrative approval. They're still subject to administrative approval now, but whereas the operating papers used to only govern individual departments, now they govern whole collections of departments within schools. So, which is to say that an operating paper which is to say that a department that has a comparatively small number of faculty will have a smaller voice in determining the operating papers, which could lead to massive amounts of marginalizations within schools. Now, I tend to trust that faculty aren't going to do things like that, but that is a very serious concern among programs who haven't had hires in like 5 or 10 years. When they're thrown into this program or into this new structure, they will lose a majority of their decision-making capacity over their own curricular offerings. This is a problem for a variety of reasons. All right, let's move on.
Hey, John.
Yes.
So you said the way it is now, the deans don't teach, or?
Yeah, deans don't teach.
Okay.
At least on our side of that. I don't know how it works for you guys, but deans don't teach over here because they can't. All right. This is the IBHE thing. This has not changed. This has. So this is kind of a big problem. This is the way in which this is the campus level review process. So previously, when I showed you this, there wasn't that extra box that says college governing body review with parenthetical that says step added by administration, time limit unknown, right? So a problem came up with regards to college governing body participation in the reorganization. The administration interpreted the Article 9 process to say that, you know, curriculum committees would be the ones that got to talk about, or that got to review the proposal, and since something like COLA Council was not a curriculum committee, they could bypass it, right? Essentially what this would do is set up a precedent that enabled the administration to bypass every college governance body on campus. and then theoretically faculty senate if they wanted to push it. The only people who could put their foot down and say no would be graduate council, because bypassing graduate council would require violating the operating papers of the graduate school, which delegates authority to changes in graduate programs to the graduate faculty, which comprise the graduate council, and so on and so forth. So essentially, this additional step was the end result of conversations between between Dave Dalala and faculty, and this is what they came up with. I'm not happy with this because it's specific to COLA Council when there are other college governance bodies on campus. And if this president is allowed to go forwards, it lays the groundwork for the administration to simply override faculty shared governance in deciding what happens in their own colleges. Essentially what would happen is you'd go through the 90-day process. None of the college disciplinary committees would see it. It would go right to grad council and faculty senate. Grad council, faculty senate could review it, and then there would be final university action. Now there are places within that where even if the administration decided to override college governance committees, other bodies could stop them. Graduate council, for example, can appoint anybody it friggin' wants to a committee. So theoretically, grad council could deputize the entire COLA council and say, consider all of these stuff that is going to affect your college and get back to us. There is a 2003 document that outlines program change and RME stuff for faculty senate that basically says, faculty senate is not going to consider anything until the appropriate college committees have been consulted, whereby they mean every college governance body. So faculty senate, to my knowledge, probably won't, or probably will fight this. Graduate council probably will fight this as per their operating papers. If they try to override it, again, you have to violate the graduate school operating papers. But the reason I bring this up is because it represents an attempt by the administration to circumnavigate shared governance. Remember at the beginning of the semester when I said if they're doing it to GPSC, they're going to do it to everybody else. They're going to find a way to figure out how to get around it. This is it. So I really hate to say it, but I told you so. This is exactly what I warned this body and pretty much everybody else on campus about. If they're going to find a way around our board-given authority, they're going to do it to every other governance body on campus. Lauren?
Is there something GPSC can do about this?
There's plenty we can do about it. We can draft a resolution that that demands college governance body inclusion in program changes. Our reps at grad council could do the same thing, so on and so forth. But if I'm going to be real clear, that has a particular kind of effective force. It's one thing for us to say, hey, the administration is ignoring us and bypassing our right for participation in shared governance. It's another thing for us to say, hey, look, we're noticing that you're doing this to the faculty, and we get that we're students and you could give two craps about us, but you can't do this to the faculty. And if we let you do it to the faculty, we're essentially ceding over any right we have to participate in the organization of the institution. Also, we're essentially standing aside and allowing the administration to knowingly violate university policy and basic principles of shared governance. But again, it's a statement, it can be ignored. What you got?
I think that they're blatantly violating policy. It's policy for a reason. It's on paper. We need to at least make a statement, in my opinion.
Yeah, if I remember the language of this censure and the things that we passed in the past, some of them hint at this happening and what we will do if this happens.
Fair. Is that a question?
I'm just throwing that out there for people, that we called this happening in public, well, not public letters, but that this is something we were anticipating, so.
Yeah, Katie?
So what is whoever came up with this, what is their justification? What's their side?
The Article 9 process says school or college committee. The administration interprets school or college committee to refer specifically to curricula committees and not to college governance bodies, so they're playing language games. Faculty don't see it that way. In fact, the bodies that we sit on, grad council, has never interpreted it in that way. Grad council tends to think of college school committee things as the governing bodies. Those of you who were present last year for that big dust up over the PSM and wildlife management recall what the heck happened there. Faculty Senate has always acted as if the curricula committees were the college governance bodies. But to my knowledge, this is the first time a sitting administrator has attempted to use a language game to get around college governance structures. What do you want me to say about this? This is the worst possible thing that one could do, short of saying I'm just going to recommend ignoring the governing bodies.
Point of information.
Yeah.
Who's got the final adjudicatory authority to determine the meaning of words within the policy? Would it be that administrator?
Depends. If, say, the union filed a grievance or stating that this kind of a decision violated Article 9 or Article 5 with regards to operating papers, then it would go to arbitration, and whoever decided, the arbitrator would decide it. If nobody filed a grievance, grad council and faculty senate have the authority to define for themselves what counts as the committees they seek review from. And the de facto way they've done it has always been to default to either the departmental or the college committee in terms of reorganization. Graduate council actually, grad council tends to treat college committees. The ultimate, if nobody filed a grievance, it would come down to whose will holds out longer, essentially, and who's willing to fight it out the longest. By policy, grad council would win that fight because grad council can determine who reviews what on the basis of their authority over graduate policy and graduate programs. Faculty Senate's authority is a little bit more tenuous, but the Undergraduate Education Policies Committee and governance committees could theoretically fight this out for as long as they wanted. At some point, I imagine the Vice President for Academic Affairs would recognize that there is what amounts to a civil war on campus and show up and say, look, you guys need to figure this out. This is what the policy says. Let's try to reach some kind of conclusion, but this is brand new territory. Other questions? It's funny you'd ask about the resolution thing, because I got one sitting on the printer. But like I said, at this point, those are kind of half measures. I can go grab it and circulate it around. It's worth doing because it indicates our support for allowing our faculty to make decisions about their own disciplines. But if I be real clear, the administrator loves ignoring us, even if we're right.
So would this be something more amenable to the grad council representatives to bring up during grad council?
I would say both. From us, yes. If GPSC reps said something from the floor that submitted a resolution from the floor that essentially said, graduate council upholds the right of college governance bodies, including but not limited to blah, 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 to participate in the review of program change proposals before graduate council makes any decision on it. That might effectively be slapping the administration's hand. The other thing you should know about this is the decision is, though the administration said, sure, COLA Council can review it, they said COLA Council alone. They haven't mentioned any of the other college governance bodies, nor did they say that COLA Council will get the full 60 days that Faculty Senate and Grad Council do. They actually will get a truncated timeline. We do not know by how much.
Can we review your resolution, or?
Yeah, sure, you can review the resolution. I'll go get it. Y'all want to kick it around? I didn't actually write it, Lauren did. I just edited it. It's 2 pages. It essentially quotes chapter and verse institutional policy that says why certain things should be done and how they should be done. Most of it's COLA Council policy, some of it's Grad Council policy. To be clear, this was part, so let me back up a little bit. Jokingly, the executive committee wanted me to raise emotions to submit my timesheet to you guys, so that, because theoretically you guys actually pay my salary. When I did the math on the hours I work, since I have a 25%, 10 hours a week, et cetera, 58 hours. So this was part of that 58 hours of research. So yeah, there you go.
There's a mistake.
Where?
I wasn't sure. The collective bargaining agreement has a question mark after it, but it is the CBA. I just forgot to take the question mark out.
Also, I've been sick, so I didn't edit it super thoroughly.
Yeah, I didn't think we would end up using it, so that's all. Sorry.
Hypothetically, if the determination or the disputes of the meaning of the policy were to continue, if the board of trustees didn't consider this a managerial issue, would they potentially come down on this?
If the board didn't consider this an issue of management, would they? Yes, because at some point the board would have to take action given the administrative deadlock. Because as set up, I mean, essentially what this does is not only is it pretty much, in my view, a naked power grab, but it sets a precedent for restricting faculty consideration of program changes to 2 bodies comprised of their peers. So the body that this would be or the body that a program change would affect would not get to consider it before sending it on to a body of their peers, right? So essentially, in my view, this is basically a naked power grab. But what would happen is if Faculty Senate and Grad Council fought it, right, you would grind the decision-making process to a halt because you couldn't override it per university policy. The administration would have to make a deliberate choice to ignore university policy to force it through, or to force Grad Council or Faculty Senate to consider the thing outside of the policies outlined in their operating papers. That would be a clear and present violation of university policy, as if the rest of this isn't, and that would probably bring the board down, although in my view they should be here already trying to figure out why this is going down like this.
just to add, the censure uses a lot, refers to these policies already, and so the board is aware that this has been happening to an extent. This is just the most obvious case of a power grab that's happened. So like, if the board has the censure, they should know that what we're talking about here is already happening.
Oh, yeah.
And they responded.
No. Yes. January 23rd.
Second.
Motion is second. It's on the table. Do we want to have a discussion about this?
Yes.
So
I'd like to.
Okay.
why no confidence instead of the resolution and censure?
Inside this resolution? I only just brought up that I'm not going to say that I'm in favor of necessarily either one, but I think it's important to note that the censure already has this language, and we haven't received a response. And so, like, in what ways is just passing the same, essentially the same statement symbolic? If they didn't respond the first time, why would they respond this time? Yeah, and we did give like a clear directive that was like, hey, here's this language about the policies that we're citing, and here's the evidence that it hasn't been happening. If this one behavior doesn't change, then we'll move to a vote of no confidence. And that was John Howard's suggestion. And then I think we passed something else. I don't
Letter
know
of
what the other
complaint.
thing was. The letter of complaint.
Letter of complaint duplicates the same language, but ad nauseum. So, to be clear, and let me back all the way up. To be clear, this is a thing that, or at least this situation is a thing that I predicted in conversations with faculty administration at this body well at the beginning of the semester. This is not new for you guys. This is just the full manifestation of a thing that I said could possibly happen, but was beyond the pale. Now it's not beyond the pale. This is an actuality that's going down. I'm not saying this to weigh in one way or the other. I am saying this to say that as a body, I have made a very concerted attempt to keep you guys informed of the possibility of this thing happening and the potential ramifications of it. To be clear, there are some units that just won't be affected by this. The School of Law, the School of Medicine, some of the distance ed programs, things like that, will remain relatively unaffected by any of this administrative showdown. If, say, college governing bodies lose their authority to consider program changes, it's not going to, say, affect the School of Medicine, except for those programs that are attached here at SIU or taught through particular departments. It will not, say, affect the School of Law because the ABA protects you guys. That's something I really wish I had. But it will screw everybody else. And we would see the effects immediately because they would now have precedent to just start ignoring decisions that come out of bodies. And let's be clear, there are a lot of things that come out of college bodies. Everything from operating paper changes to faculty hires and appointments to budgetary approvals to sabbatical leave approvals, things like that. All that goes through your college committees. And if the administration suddenly decides that these committees are irrelevant for the time being, then we will be out of any kind of authority to decide those things. Yes.
I think it's also important to point out that when we passed the letter of censure and all of the other conversations were happening, that there was not a clear stance on like where does faculty, senate, grad council, and all of the other governing bodies stand. The temperature has significantly changed. I know for a fact that COLA is talking about this tonight, did talk about this tonight. I don't know if they're still in the meeting. COLA is certainly talking about this topic already. And so the fact that the temperature on campus is significantly different than when we passed the censure.
So,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
After you.
What exactly happens if we do a vote of no confidence? I mean,
Yeah.
what's after that?
It essentially says that the graduate and professional student body of the Southern Illinois University Carbondale does not have confidence in the chancellor to effectively execute, insert whatever text we want to put there. It basically says we don't think he can do his job, or at least do elements of his job appropriately for the service of graduate education. Basically, we're saying we don't think he can do his job, or whatever elements of his job we so define.
I realize that this might be unusual for this body, but I moved to recess for like 3 minutes.
You could do that, sure. Yeah, no, that's not a you could do that question mark. That is a motion on the table. Let me rehash my Robert's rules. The motion to vote, the motion for a vote of no confidence was laid on the table, seconded. Theoretically, that motion might take precedence over a motion to, actually, here's what you do. Make a point of personal privilege to recess for 3 minutes, which would supersede the vote of no confidence.
Say the original motion.
Say what?
About we stay the original motion
For how long?
for 3 minutes.
Okay, that might work.
you
But
can
then you'd
make
be
that
stuck in the room for 3 minutes. It wouldn't be a recess.
Point of personal privilege.
Okay, so you want to do what
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
said. The reason why it said that instead of stay, because I assume you guys want to go out and caucus about this.
Yes.
And not sit in the room and have the conversation.
Yes.
And then people can use the restroom with that, so.
That kind of thing, right?
Way to,
Okay.
Way to cater it
So,
all.
the motion, so actually you don't need a second for that. So all in favor of, all right, all opposed? The ayes have it, you guys get to go sit in the hallway and talk, or whatever. For 3 minutes.
Let's get the chair. That's fine. So you're right. Okay, well,
Oh, hold on a second, I need to, yeah, hold on a second. Don't,
Yeah, we're gonna turn off the mic during your recess. The mic's still on, so that this is a private conversation with the constituents.
okay, so let's get to it. So before we recess, Derek, did you make a motion about the resolution, or was the only motion on the table the vote of no confidence?
I didn't make a motion. I mentioned that I think that we should consider the resolution over the vote of no confidence.
Oh, okay.
What? Were we in discussion?
Yes, we were in discussion over I was just making sure there was no motion about the resolution on the table.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I said I think that we should consider the resolution first over the vote of confidence.
I was just making sure there was no motion on the table about the resolution.
Only motion was recess.
Okay, so prior to the recess, the only other motion was the vote of no confidence, at which point we were in discussion. Continue to discuss.
So what are we discussing?
So can I motion to table the vote of no confidence and motion to have a first reading of this resolution?
Yes.
I would like to motion what I just said.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Holy God, we're gonna have to count again. Diana, could you count? All right, all in favor?
I'm seeing 8. Right?
All opposed?
Let's see. Stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
There we go.
And then I'm assuming the other ones were abstentions. Okay. Abstentions, can you raise your hands just so I can get official call? So 3 abstentions. Are you putting it in a vote?
I will abstain.
Abstain? Okay. Then it's going to be 15, 15 oppose, 8, and then 4.
Oh, okay. So the motion fails. We're back to the vote of no confidence, as it were. Discussion then.
So this is the vote of no confidence in the chancellor, or just all of it?
Based on the censure.
So my question, I have a question. So are you trying to vote no confidence, or are you trying to vote the resolution?
No confidence.
But I mean,
Based on the censure that we passed in December.
right, but why pass out the resolution? I mean, was that for a choice? And whether we were to determine for discussion which we were going to do? Why do we now have 2?
It was my motion.
Someone asked to see it.
Yeah, there was
Asked to see it.
there was
So-
a recommendation that we pass a resolution, and I just happened to have one handy, so I brought it out. There was never an actual motion to consider the resolution as an item for the body. I just said I had one, and y'all ran with
Grad
it from
students
there.
also are not of the belief that those two are mutually exclusive.
Agreed.
That's fair. They aren't mutually exclusive, and if I'm going to be honest from a political standpoint, it's one thing to say, we have no confidence in the chancellor. It's another thing to say we have no confidence in the chancellor, and in addition, we believe that our faculty should have every opportunity to consider the program changes via resolution, right? So these are two things that can work in tandem, or they can be completely independent. My understanding of how this has gone down at other institutions, again, that like a bazillion hours I put in looking this stuff up, is you can vote no confidence and then tell other bodies to do their jobs, which is essentially what this resolution does. It says, I mean, if we were even to consider it, which we haven't because there's no motion there, it essentially says, these are all the policies that say you have to do this. We want you to do it. The vote of no confidence says, previously we have asked you to do things in line with all of these policies. You have failed to do that. We don't think you can do your job because you keep breaking the policies. But the two aren't mutually exclusive. One essentially says that we want faculty to have every right to participate. The other says we don't think the chancellor can do its job. If we wanted to be weird about it, we could say we don't think the chancellor could do his job, therefore we want more faculty participation to ensure that this is done equitably, which would be a way of reading these two things together. But there's that. I mean, I can keep opining about the potential institutional and other such contexts if you like. Should have written my dissertation on ed admin and higher ed.
Why not?
Is there anything I can clarify?
So I have a question. With this vote of no confidence, it's just basically saying that us as the Graduate Professional Student Council has no confidence in what the chancellor's doing. That's all it does.
Yeah, we don't
It's
think we
just stating it.
Yeah, we don't think he can do his job.
Okay.
It's also very clear in the language that says, like, here are the BOT policies that said graduate students should be included in the decision-making process. Here's the ways that he has excluded graduate students. So there's quite a bit in that indicate that.
So,
Yeah.
so to make it clear, we're doing a vote of no confidence based upon an ambiguity or a different reading of a word.
Ooh.
Is that?
No,
I
okay.
feel
So
like that's
let
how
me-
this came about.
Let me break it down for you. The only reason this ambiguity would ever come up is if you wanted to intentionally override faculty authority for program changes. As it has been, the only reason grad council gets RMEs is because they go through this process, right?
Correct.
Article 9 says that relevant college or curriculum bodies get to consider program changes proposals up to this point. De facto, and the grad council reps know this, those bodies are usually the curriculum change bodies of the larger campus. This is a question that comes up every time you get an RME. Correct me if I'm wrong. Who has reviewed the RME? Have you talked to the affected faculty? So on and so forth. Generally, this means the college body considers these things. What the chancellor has done, or at least his administrative, I'm trying to think of a better word than lackeys, but what the chancellor and his subordinates have done is essentially said, oh, this, you guys don't get to do that. It's going straight to grad council and faculty senate for consideration. There's no need for us to submit these things to you guys. Now, faculty senate has some policy on the books that says, yeah, we're not going to consider it unless the colleges get to look at it, and this has been the way that grad council has operated. But this is not a mere language technicality. I would agree with you if it came up every time grad council had to consider an RME. This is coming up in this specific context for a specific purpose.
Okay.
In terms of the censure, to give you an indication of how clear the language is, what?
The other one.
Which one?
What are you just,
Wait,
we're talking about this,
I'm trying to figure out where we are
the
right now.
censure / vote of no confidence.
Okay.
The vote of no confidence is based in the censure. That's what your question was about, Matt, right?
Correct.
So the BOT policy 3F3 mandates that graduate student professional council are the representatives for student participation in institutional planning and administration, and that in the case that this isn't direct quoting, I only have part of this part quoted, but in the case that the university does not necessarily have to get or solicit feedback or review from any of the governing bodies, they are still required to receive the advice and encouragement of all of the governing bodies. None of that has happened. So the language is not only is the language clear that says GPSC and other governing bodies have to be included in this decision-making program where any programs are created or gotten rid of or reorganization happens, but it also says even if.
So, go ahead. Sorry. My thought is, if you do a vote of no confidence, nothing comes of it other than saying this is a vote of no confidence. And all that does is piss off the chancellor. So anytime that we try to work with him in the future, he's going to say, you did this earlier, I don't care about your...
He's already doing that.
Are we not pissed off?
Right, no, we are, but
As you quote everything we've said.
it's already so bad, do we want to make it worse?
Yes, we force his hand to do worse stuff, and then we can get him fired for it.
Also, just to, I think it's also important to note that, so the body has already voted to pass a censure. And it looks worse if we say, oh, here's this censure where we'll say we'll do this thing, but we won't. So, I get your point that if we were just to randomly do a vote of no confidence, what does that do? But we have created a very clear process in the censure and the letter of complaint that says, if X, then Y. And so X has happened. They have not responded. We have agreed not to make it public. We took the side of diplomacy, which said, hey, we're gonna send you these things. We have not made them public despite requests to make them public. And now it's time to move, because if we don't, it looks like that we're not going to do the things that we say we will. And it's also important to note that other governing bodies move in the same way that GPSC has been doing. So GPSC does something, the governing bodies start to do it.
This is true.
Are we skipping steps, or is...
No.
No, the last line of the censure says, therefore be it further resolved that if it does not happen or this conduct does not improve, I don't have the final version.
That's fair. If I may, in terms of skipping steps, e.g., are we going from A to D to Z without the intervening steps administratively, institutionally? What is the context of your question?
Administratively, because I feel like last time when we voted on the censure, I felt as if we were going from A to D. I was just confused, trying to understand. Is
So-
this?
Yeah, that's fair. Let me break it down for you. If I'm going to follow, say, AAUP's guidelines on shared governance, then we are moving at a snail's pace, right? It's typically we complain, we issue a letter, we make requests to meet, we try to meet in the middle, we send delegates, folks who don't have good relationships with a given administrator stop talking to them, then we censure. Right, and we ask for particular responses from individuals, governing bodies. In the absence of those responses, then you vote no confidence in a given administrator. So we are moving faster than the faculty, but slower than other governing bodies where this kind of thing has happened. To be clear, again, when I did the research about student bodies voting no confidence in their chancellor, none of them have ever given this much leeway. Usually it's the chancellor did something bad, let's vote no confidence. The chancellor's done something bad, let's tell him about it, let's tell him why it's bad, let's try to explain our position to him, let's censure him, let's wait for the board to respond, and then go from there. So, and if you want to talk by policy, we don't actually have to do any of that.
Correct.
Theoretically, I could go have a phone call conversation with Brad Caldwell and say, look, as a constituency head, I have this problem with my sitting administrator. The other administrators on my campus are unwilling to do something. Do something about it. I tried that a couple of times. And
nothing came from it,
nothing
right?
happened.
Okay.
So this is in general why I have abstained on most of the votes that have happened at this meeting right now, because I have walked through every step available to me and every step that I have presented to this body, and I'm trying to remain as impartial as I can. But from an institutional and political perspective, we have nothing left to do. And if I'm going to be really frank, we have nothing left to lose, right? If no one stands against this kind of a decision in a very firm kind of way, then we might as well just kiss shared governance at this institution goodbye. Breon?
Question. And if I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question, but this is due to my ignorance about the law school. I know what benefits or the lack of benefits that the graduate school receives, and graduate students get, but are there benefits like within this restructuring that the law school students in that department would get?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
good.
benefiting from it.
Great.
Okay, so this could be.
You want me to outline them for
actually,
you?
I would like to say that I think our divide here is the fact that the emergency meeting that was called at the beginning of December was during our final exams. That's about the equivalent of calling a emergency meeting during your preliminaries. So the majority of us were not here. We were not here. We are not allowed to miss exams for any reason under ABA standards.
Did y'all have
We were
finals at 7:30?
at 7:30.
Like when the meeting was held? I'm not being rude, I'm just asking in general.
So I think that clearly you don't understand what a law school exam consists of in a day, but there would have been absolutely no way for the majority of us to come to those. The people that did show up, it was only because perhaps they didn't have another exam the following day.
And mind you, I was done with my exams.
Were the proxies
Perhaps it doesn't,
vote
but-
counted?
Yes.
Okay.
To you, it does not make a difference, but if we called an emergency meeting during the difference between whether you get a future job or not, whether you pass a class and get your degree, then it would matter to you then.
I do think it's important to point out though that we were all also going through a similar process, and that it's the time when we have to grade our 40+ students' final papers. We also have to be prepping for our finals. Like, I know that the law school has different challenges than the grad students do, but we also have challenges, and we also made it. But I think it's also important to recognize that at that meeting, there was a proportional decrease for each side of there were less law students and less graduate students. So like, it all kind of played out so that we all were less represented than we are currently, but we did have enough votes to meet quorum.
Yeah.
I would like to say that there's no reason to be this like big division on like these points between the law school and the grad students whatsoever. I think the main issue that we were having with the vote of no confidence is because all the benefits that are actually coming to our program, and we in the dossiers that people were turning in outlined these benefits. We're getting more money, for example. We haven't been able to hire, and I know a lot of programs have not, faculty in a very long time. We've had tons of resignations, retirements. Our own dean resigned last semester. So with the chancellor's plan right now, it does benefit us. So there is that worry that if we vote for no confidence, even in this constituency body, that especially with the DE here, that's going to come out.
That's
So
fair.
let me put it this way.
That's fair.
Since of all of us, I'm the one who sits in the room when they talk about how these decisions are made. Yours is a done deal. You can go ask Judy Marshall if you don't believe me. As of January 1st, the financial decisions that you guys are talking about with regards to law school are in effect. Sure, you could walk it back, but you have to do it again, say at the end of the next fiscal year, right? So you're good at least until then. That, and it would very clearly be an act of retaliation against a student body that had voted, for whatever reason. I'm not saying this to sway your position. I'm saying this to make it clear that the financial reality of your of the School of Law is such that as of January 1st, whatever financial benefits you guys are going to get are already in play. Judy Marshall has already set up the accounting going forwards. Now, whatever your administrators decide to do with regards to that, I have no understanding of that beyond that. But I do know that according to Judy Marshall's office, your financial stuff is already set up. It was the only reason they could have proposed a tuition hike for you guys, for all of us, if they hadn't already done it, because there would have been no appreciable benefit. You couldn't simultaneously say we're going to fold the law school's budget into the university's budget and then do some other stuff. It would screw up the fee structure because they'd have to do separate fee adjustments for you guys. So that's just that.
So I definitely appreciate the sentiment that it should not be like us versus y'all and vice versa. I just want to be clear, I think a lot of people are responding to me because I'm kind of speaking for all of us. And also, I generally know quite a bit of what's happening like you all do. And so it's not necessarily an us versus you all, but it is important to note that like you're talking about like not being able to come because you're finals, but like if my department goes away, if I'm not able to teach as an instructor of record anymore, that's my career, and that's not in my own doing. I can't choose to skip a meeting to study for finals more because the university has decided that they want to literally get rid of the academic structure that is needed in my discipline, that is required for me to get a job. So that's why we are all it feels like there is a little bit of a y'all are out for yourselves and not for the entire constituency body that you're supposed to be representing. And I get that because y'all have benefits from this, and that's cool. I just think it's important to note that this seriously affects our livelihoods moving on, and every graduate student who comes to this institution, if they come to this institution. If they're not able to teach, if they don't have a traditional departmental structure that's in line with their discipline's expectations, if their degree says something along the lines of they got a degree from a degree track or a degree program rather than the Department of Communication Studies, if that happens, it seriously affects us. Also, what happens if we graduate and our diplomas say Department of, I'm saying Communication Studies because that's me, but there are other representatives here. If it says Department of Communication Studies and then Department of Communication Studies is gone next year, like these are things that we have to consider that are pretty significant for our livelihoods. So that's why it's tense.
And
just want to throw that out there.
And it seems like your rejection is based on the benefits you will receive, like specifically to the law school. And I think that reflects poorly on all of you. It's kind of insulting to us.
So I actually don't think that, I don't feel that way. I don't feel that we are getting as many benefits as what, like it seems like from what, maybe what Derek said, I don't feel that way. I am concerned about, I don't know what went into, like what type of standards, what kind of information went into coming up with the censure. I have no idea.
John Howard is the one who suggested this, so.
So, yeah, and so I was a little kind of concerned because John is a law student, so to clarify, John is a law student, and that's fine, but I still don't know exactly how we got from A to censure. But I have no idea. And then to add in this resolution, I am a bit confused as to what exactly needs to happen from the perspective of the graduate school. What exactly needs to happen? Do you need a resolve, or do you need a censure? Do you need both? How can we help you? But at the same time, I feel like that we maybe as a group are missing something here. I think that there needs to be more instead of just we are very angry and you are censured. I don't think that going forward that makes for good policy, because he is never going to respond to this body and he is going to destroy your school. And that is not okay for us, and we don't want to see that happen either. But there needs to be something else than just either a censure or this. Maybe a combination, maybe speak to us. I mean, I know that we're saying we've done everything, but from Matt's perspective, there is something that clearly we have not as a body tried diplomatically. I have no idea. I have no idea, because I clearly don't know exactly what you all have tried to do from your different departments. I know that a lot of your faculty members are also expressing a lot of anger, but how can
I just pause you real quick? It's not anger. It is absolutely not anger. It is kind of a very legal perspective, which is that, hey, we have these policies that say this thing should happen and it's not happening. We need to bring it to the attention of the public and or the BOT. It's sure we're angry, but
are we doing that?
So all right,
Is body doing that?
I will take this question. It is not this body's responsibility to adjudicate contract matters. The only reason you guys have that information is because I served as GAU president for 2 years, and I took it upon myself to delay writing my dissertation chapters, which is my future, to understand the way in which this will affect not only faculty contracts, but operating papers, hour contracts, all that other stuff. I hang out with the faculty and tend to give them advice on their own ops papers because I've read them and I understand the policy. They are doing it. Faculty move slowly because they're faculty, and I will not get into the political kinds of things going on between the faculty. But to ask the faculty to do this is to ask them to do something that it would take them a very long time to do. The only reason the faculty are moving at some of the pace that they are is because this body has decided to take a step forward and say, hey, look, this is wrong for these reasons. These are all of the policy reasons why this is wrong. Trust me, I did the research. And then they start moving from there. Like, for example, we got our resolutions opposing departmental elimination out before grad council, faculty, senate. Their language mirrors ours.
Grad Council has also brought up the discussion of sending the policy to BOT, or the departmental resolution.
So the faculty are doing what they can. They just do it as faculty. And recall the last meeting when I said there's a lot of that jockeying for positions going on. Faculty are not universally united. They don't agree on particular ways of moving forward, but the majority of them have concerns. It's really hard to explain this without basically saying.
So from a legal perspective,
putting the faculty.
With steps A and B and C and all that jazz. I do know that in the English department, we were brought the request to write a letter explaining how it could affect our department. That I was not here, and I feel like that would have been step A or step lowercase a. So I feel like that's even where the process started, so personally.
And I think all the, like, most of the departments in COLA and various other schools have done the same.
So I don't know if you got an opportunity to do
They
something
did.
like that? 'Cause
I asked them to.
Okay, so for me personally, as someone, like, I see that already as the starter step of the, like, just discussing it within our own department was step one for us. So I guess I'm already personally seeing us more around step Q.
Yeah, the reason why I started with the SWOT analysis way back when is because, again, you guys elected me to maintain the integrity of the graduate education mission of this institution and to represent you guys faithfully. The best way I knew to do that was to follow steps A, lowercase a, and then all the way on up. That's why I asked you guys for the SWOT analyses. That's why I keep bringing you the information. That's why I keep posting it on the GPSC website with the intention that you will go back to your constituency body and come up with something for me to give to the chancellor. So it's not just me saying, well, you know, this is bad, but this is bad because zoology thinks it'll damage their program in this way. Plant bio says this way. CCJ says this way. Health ed says this way.
I want to know, because this is all of us right now. You're talking to us about we have exhausted our administrative remedies. The next step is to file a lawsuit. So have you been completely harmed? And who and where are you going to file a suit? That is our thought process. That is what we do. And so if you are completely on letter Z, then there has to be someone, there has to be something that you can file. That is where,
okay.
That is our thought process.
So let me break it down in that way for it, right? And you guys are going to have to bear with me on this because you asked me to explain an administrative structure. The way that our authority works is per Board of Trustees Policies 3F3, we have the policy granted right to participate in institutional administration, academic reorganization, student welfare, a lot of other stuff, right? That's policy given right. That's the same policy given right of faculty senate, graduate council, et cetera, et cetera. Faculty senate and grad council differ because they're faculty and they control the curriculum, which means they get a little bit more policy given authority, some of which is delegated to us because we have 5 reps on graduate council. So in the event of a conflict, there is no directly outlined policy for raising grievances of this sort. There is no directly outlined policy for this for grad council or for faculty senate. What happens is the bodies get together, they generate resolutions, they pass, they take votes of no confidence, they do censures. If I was to be really clear, the person I would file any hypothetical lawsuit would be with the provost. Done that. The provost has, in an attempt to, and now I guess I can say it this way, pacify us, taken on the chancellor's responsibility to meet regularly with myself. The next thing I would do would be go to the grad dean. He sacked the grad dean. The next thing I would do is theoretically go to the other provost, but we do not actually have a single provost. We have co-provosts. So theoretically, I should have, if we're going to do this from ground up, it would have been me going to the co-provosts, the co-provost doing whatever, then me going to the provost doing whatever, me jumping the provost and going to the vice president for academic programs at the system level, Brad Caldwell, done that, and then going from Brad Caldwell to Randy Dunn, done that too. I am out of options short of calling up AAUP, the IBHE or whatever, but I'm a student. I do not have that institutional authority. I have more institutional authority than most other students on this campus, so theoretically I could call them down, but I sure as hell wouldn't.
Who is your person then?
Brad Caldwell and
No.
President.
Who is your person that can?
Oh, the faculty.
Well, that's who.
But they won't move unless we do, and that has been the pattern going
Faculty are
forward.
here for significantly longer, so it's much harder for them to be able to do these sort of things, and they somewhat rely on graduate students to do it.
Yeah, particularly me. But if I'm going to go way back, a vote of no confidence would be the lawsuit we file for whomever. If This body takes a vote of no confidence and we send it off to the Board of Trustees. That's literally saying the people elected to represent the graduate and professional students on this campus don't think the person appointed to do the job can do the job, and they'd have to figure out why, they'd have to figure out where, they'd be obligated to engage with us in ways that they aren't with the censure. When we first talked about this and I called it the nuclear option, I called it that for a reason because it forces them to take seriously their obligation to show up and find out.
Why aren't we doing that?
Because we have to vote on it. And this is weird.
Can I make a motion?
Stop. No.
Isn't there a rule in the email rules about discussion time?
If I set discussion time to a particular limit, but nobody limited discussion time, and we have not been discussing for an hour, so I haven't.
Will you give Brianna an opportunity to speak?
I will.
Go ahead and finish. I'll go ahead.
I just couldn't remember the Roberts rules for discussion, but I know there can be a time limit.
Man, of the other things I've had to learn that aren't in my discipline.
Quick, Google it.
What is that the last question or?
No, Brianna's been raising his
All
hand for a
right.
while.
So what you got?
I'm sorry.
I was just moved to a motion to speed this process up because it is some, deadly weather out there, and so we can speed the voting or it is. And
It's still on the table. This is now the discussion, but that is what's on the motion's on the table.
Point of clarification, I think this will speed it along immediately. To my colleague at the end of the table, sorry that it did seem insulting to some, but yet again we are elected representatives as well from each of our constituents. We have to bring those worries as well to our thought processes here. I personally have been swayed, I think, by the discussion here that, and along with Sheena, just short of a lawsuit, our last option is perhaps the proposed option here. Recognizing that we not only represent ourselves, but also the graduate students as a whole, I, for one, am willing to offer my support in this vote. And I move the vote.
Second.
You're my hero.
The motion on the table, is it,
It's the.
what, can we repeat it?
So the motion on the table is to take a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Carlo Montemagno.
Okay. Wanted it to be official.
Can I get a second with the vote?
If you don't mind,
I second.
can I say something before the motion, please? Yeah, if you don't mind. I know she's. Oh no, not now. Sorry. But again, it's nice to see how we are discussing things. And firstly, I really appreciate the time that you dedicate for all of those things. And if it's taking away, too much from your dissertation time, and really appreciate it. And I can imagine that all of us are appreciating that time. And also, I really appreciate all of our friends from the School of Law, okay, and having your ideas. And thanks, Lauren, thanks everyone, for also representing like the other way or the other side. But now it's me. But I was wondering, is it too late? And I hope it's not. Do we have any power or authority to call or to invite the chancellor
We have.
to come?
Okay.
Give me a second if you don't mind. I know it's a lot for you, but give me a second if you don't mind. So, inviting him to this body and at least to melt the ice between us and him in a way or another. Just even if it's not an official one, we just invite him for coffee. Just we can say that. I can imagine even if he says no, then he might think in a different way and say, I can in another time invite you all for coffee. But it's at least melting the ice. Because I feel in a way or another, I might be wrong, completely wrong, I might be off the topic, but I feel we are on one side and what things are happening and taking place on campus is a little bit away.
Isn't that the scene?
Okay. Hold on a second.
What is that?
Well, I also think that we're invited.
Yeah, we did.
Can we?
We have a coffee. We did.
All right.
There's a
For
motion to
coffee.
vote on the table.
So there is a motion to vote on the table,
Yeah,
and
it's been
it's been seconded, and I will respond to Abdul Samad's question. I have invited the chancellor, or last semester I invited the chancellor no less than 3 times, gave him 3 different dates. He refused all of them, then said he would not be entertaining any meetings with GPSC. He did so before I did anything that one could consider a particular kind of aggressive act towards him. So, let me put it that way. The other thing is, our authority to compel a chancellor to sit before us is, again, granted by Board of Trustees policy. We get more authority if he were to declare financial exigency or financial emergency. Absent those 2 declarations, we can invoke Board of Trustees policies to say, hey, look, you're involving us in institutional planning can be construed as showing up and talking to us. I tried that. It didn't work. He said, the long and short of it was, you have constituency head meetings, that is where I talk to you. But that is also where he talks to Faculty Senate, AP Staff Council, USG, Grad Council. It's the way that those meetings are conducted. It's more him telling us what he's going to do and us asking questions, and we have 30 minutes for every constituency head on campus. That is not enough time to address graduate student specific problems. Second, the chancellor was even reluctant to meet with faculty bodies. The Faculty Senate had to call a special session that was transformed from one of their executive sessions to get him in the room with the Faculty Senate body, and that's just Faculty Senate. He did not want other folks showing up. So, to be clear, and to put this to rest, I have tried every diplomatic thing to get him to not just meet with me, but meet with other folks. The thing that it got to the point where one of our co-provosts said, I recognize there is a communications breakdown between GPSC and the chancellor. I don't know where it came from, but in order to ensure that we're doing our best to talk to you guys, we're going to have monthly meetings. That is how bad it got.
Okay, point of order. Point of order. Okay, so there was a motion to the previous question on the asking of voting of no confidence. That motion was seconded. That's before the floor for a vote to move back to the original motion to vote on a vote of no confidence.
You can theoretically vote.
It is not debatable. It is not amendable.
So,
we need to vote to return to the previous question. It's not debatable. It's not amendable. Move to that immediate vote. All in favor of moving back to a vote. So this is not in favor of the vote of no confidence. This is in favor of moving immediately to the consideration and vote on the motion for no confidence. All opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. Before the council is the motion for the approval of a vote of no confidence.
So basically, we're voting no confidence in the chancellor.
If you say yes, you're voting no confidence.
To be clear.
Yes.
but can we have like a third option of coffee?
No. You can abstain or you can oppose.
I mean, coffee.
Those are your options.
No coffee?
Can I motion to vote?
On the
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion's already there.
The motion's right there.
All right,
Let's
so
do it.
Maybe coffee.
To be clear, we are going to do this vote by show of hands unless you force me to do a roll call or private vote.
Coffee.
Okay, so the vote is by show of hands because nobody decided otherwise. All in favor of voting no confidence in Chancellor Carlo Montemagno, please raise your hands to signal the affirmative. Oh, I get to vote on this one. Clay's not voting.
Let the DE get a picture.
Oh, man.
In the window.
You good?
Oh, I'm good.
All opposed?
One opposed?
Are you sure you're opposed, or do you want to abstain?
You oppose?
Yeah, I'm a little worried as to whether we're all going to.
Okay, so you're opposed? All right.
I think I'm more.
Abstentions? All right, Clay. That's fair.
Sorry for both of us.
Yes.
So, moving beyond the vote of no confidence, I still think that we should try to talk to him, and I know that we have, and I know that they're all failed attempts.
Yeah.
So I think maybe if it's in the public's eye that he is saying no to us, that will sway him to speak to us. So could we, like, as a body, buy an ad in the DE that says, "Hey Chandler, will you come speak with us?"
Before comment, I know we'll be here for that. I promise in front of the body, I will pay the copy for the transport.
I mean, I don't want it to be rude or tacky or anything like that. I want it to be respectful, but what else can we do? If he's just going to ignore us, could we do something like that?
We could. I mean, that would be an expenditure of GPSC funds, and we'd have to talk it out with the DE, but theoretically we could.
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure. I hope this might, be on the front page. To be
clear, I have invited the DE to GPSC. Well, the previous president invited the DE to the GPSC meetings to report on our ongoings. I clarified this with the former editor-in-chief by saying, look, GPSC will never ask for prior review. We'll never ask you to report things in a specific way. We'll never ask you to do anything that violates the journalism code of ethics. What we will ask you to do is source your quotes, make sure you are accurately representing the ongoings of the meeting, so on and so forth. To that end, I will not entertain any motions that ask us to influence the DE in one way or another. And the reason why I'm saying this, like in a meeting, is so that it's on our minutes, and if there is any question about what the DE is reporting coming out of this body, there it is, right? I have formally said that I will not entertain any motion to influence the DE's reporting in any way, shape, or form.
And you had a question?
Two actually. First was I just wanted to get an official count of the for, against, and abstention so I can report this to my constituency.
I can count. This is probably easier for me to do right here. There's one abstention, one opposed, and the rest were for. I can just count the number of people here real quick.
There's someone left.
So 23 people voted for, one opposed, and one abstention.
I move that we move on to the next item.
Yes, there's so much.
So we're not done with this yet. Y'all thought we were done.
Well,
there's a reason why that thing is a gigantic item and a standing. All right, so
I have something that actually needs to be voted on. So what else?
I will get through this real
Sweet.
fast. All right, so as I promised,
get the vote because we won't have quorum.
As I promised, getting through this really quickly. Things you need to know. They updated this February 5th. New stuff is all of the School of Allied Health is now in the School of Health Services. School of Accounting gets its own school. They got promoted. Soch is potentially going to go to Homeland Security. Homeland Security is now being renamed to, and I will bring it up for you, the School of Justice and Public Safety. That is what Homeland Security's new name is being bandied about as. Soch is going there. The only reason I'm stopping on this slide and not really going through everything else, because, I mean, all of Allied Health went to the School of Health. Accountancy got its own school. IST went to the School of Finance. I don't know why Information Systems Technology went to the School of Finance, but it's not on me. Soch moving from the School of Social Sciences and Multicultural Studies leaves only 2 degree granting programs in that school. So there are only 2 degree granting programs in a school that houses all of our what we would call area studies, all the multicultural studies, all those programs. Only 2 degree granting programs. Remember when I said if that unit lost a 3rd degree granting program beyond psych, because psych is fucking gigantic, if that unit lost another program, that is where you send your multicultural programs to die. That is where you send your multicultural programs to die. To be clear, Faculty Senate passed a couple of resolutions about this. I think Grad Council did too, and they still fucking did it. So if we, and this, generally I don't like to opine on the intentions of the institution, but I'm trying to figure out another way to read this. If you wanted to kill all of your area studies, you would do something like this. And this is probably the fourth time I've said it. Now I'm actually going on record as saying it's my position as president of GPSC that if you're going to do it this way, you will kill those programs, and that is not in the best interest of this institution, and it actively contravenes several elements of the university's mission. That is all I have to say about that. There is nothing else new in this. I will update the version 5 that is on the GPSC website to a version 6 so that you guys can see the chronology of what happened. That'll probably be another, it'll be now like 30 pages long. I'm sorry, but there you have it. Moving quickly through this thing. Departmental votes reorganizations. I'll get to this real fast. So these are all the units who have voted for a 30-day extension. It's divided into schools and departments. These are all the departments that have voted for a 30-day extension. These are all the schools. And by schools, I mean the active organizations of the units as outlined by the administration. So every unit in these schools voted for the extension. Yeah, that's fun. That's pretty much all of COLA. There are some other votes that are coming in. Recall, faculty have until the end of the week to do this. Also, every time the administration modifies that big org chart, the 90-day is reset. So a whole bunch of people have been reset. There are some units that have voted for acceleration, but there's it's kind of iffy about that. All of this is on the Faculty Association's website. They're keeping a running total of these votes, and I imagine our vote of no confidence is going to be up there too. But all of this is on the FA's website. You can you can go to it and check it out. But these are the units that have confirmed voting no confidence, or not confidence, voting for the extension. To be clear, according to Associate Provost Dalala, every unit that has turned in a vote in some way, shape, or form has also turned in a vote, a straw poll of the faculty within that unit that says, we don't like this.
Do we know if COLA voted tonight?
I have no idea. I wish I did. So there's that. That is a good maybe 40 to 50% of the non-law school faculty on this campus. And that's all I got for the recommendations for reorganization. Let me put it this way. The chancellor has every document that I do, and he's selectively ignoring the recommendations in the program change report for how to go about program change and reorganization, which basically means poll the faculty, hold focus groups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the recommendations that I was going to give to you are basically stolen from all the documents that are hosted on the GPSC website, and they include all kinds of things like talking to us and other constituency bodies, so there's that. Moving on to item 6, old business.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
The resolution we didn't really finish talking about, if I'm correct, because we didn't actually vote for it. This kind of aligns with what you're talking about though, right? I mean, can we actually make a motion to use this resolution?
Sure.
I mean,
This would be the first reading.
yeah, second, okay.
So,
I think an addendum is necessary to the last paragraph because I think there's a typo.
well, that's why it's the first reading, so you guys have the opportunity to review it and get it back to me. All in favor? All opposed? I need to do something else. I have to go. I'm going to go to the Board of Trustees on both days. When I go to the Board of Trustees and tell them about this, will you guys authorize me to say that GPSC... How should we put... GPSC has passed a resolution demanding or that you guys include faculty in program change stuff?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I like to clear what I'm going to say to people with you guys before I say it. There. All right.
I motion that we, instead of going straight to old business, skip to 8B, since people are leaving, so we can get the votes for the financial advisory board.
Oh, really?
Second.
Holy
A
shit.
few people have
It's
left.
already like almost 10.
Oh, okay, so,
Second.
Yeah, and there's been several people who have left already.
yeah.
Just to make sure we
actually have the quorum.
Okay, yeah, go.
Okay, all right. So we're skipping down. So this would be if you're 8 section B. So fee allocation committee met with 2 organizations today. Before I do this though, I would like to take into consideration. I'm going to be. We have a few people on our plate and a couple other organizations who are requesting to come in 2 weeks. Right now, our total remaining funds in event funding is $1,325. I would like you to take in consideration as I review these particular organizations that have requested funds, the opportunity to shift funds from travel funding to event funding to serve those who have put in their applications thus far. Right now, there is right now $10,150 remaining in travel funding. $8,850 have been spent, leading into partially the spring semester. So by removing $2,000, this would still balance out with what was pretty much balance out with what was given in the fall semester for travel funding. So before I actually begin, I would actually like to make a motion that we channel funds that we transfer $2,000 in the budget line from travel funding to event funding to accommodate those applications we have currently in our. And then after that, I would actually just close then any further opportunities for applications, and then we'd be done with funding after we get through what we have.
Second.
All right, a second. So all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so it passes. So now the budget for travel funding is now $3,325. Travel funding is $8,150.
Diana, as a quick question, I think you know what I'm about to ask.
Please feel free.
Have we received that additional allocation from USG?
We have not.
Do you know why?
Because is this why you're asking? So it would be on the DEs. All right. Well.
No, I'm asking because the body now needs to know because we have passed the time limit where I said I wouldn't talk about it.
Okay. So what has happened is I've met with the fiscal officer for USG, looking at their overall academic year budget. They usually have an excess of about $25,000 to $30,000. Based on what we requested, this would still give them their budgets to meet all their students' needs. It has been approved by every executive officer and originally approved by the president. Now the president is dragging feet, even though he's being asked by the rest of his committee to move forward. Understanding, especially since they have seeing our needs, seeing that we've run out of budgets for event funding as well as for travel funding, they definitely see our need. They are also receiving requests from organizations that both assist both graduate and undergraduate students. In many of those cases, they deny them, and we had several that came into our last meeting that were denied by USG because they serve graduate students, bringing upon a larger demand on GPSC. It's still under negotiation. It's still under discussion. Lori Stetler is capable of moving forward. It's just a matter of getting that signature, and then funds will then be shifted and move forward and allocated from there. So I'm still trying to, but we're just missing that one person. I've also tried to contact and set up a meeting with him to discuss some of his concerns or worries about this, especially since his financial officer said this will not impact us whatsoever. We have such an excess amount of money that this will have absolutely no impact on us, and it will have a gigantic, enormous impact on GPSC. So, but this is what we have at this time for event funding. But yes, that is something that looking at, well, I hate to say this on record, but looking at who remains and who's graduating from USG, I think it's easy to also still negotiate moving forward. What the concern might be is that they've already set a budget for this academic year. Even that would not affect them because they also budgeted in that excess, which I understand. And so if this needs to be negotiated to then take to go into effect the following year, I would totally negotiate that and see what we can do. But it's still potentially on the table, and at that time, we could certainly look at how to allocate those funds that are received. Now, note, as I mentioned earlier in the fall semester, the way that funds are allocated from the student activity fee is now student fees. Is now allocated on a monthly basis. So based on the timeline that students register, you give 10 days after that. That then gives your account for the semester. Once funding comes in, the bulk of that came in September, and now the bulk of that came in today. So we've already seen the bulks, and so what we will have remaining really still wouldn't have. If it were given to us, we'd only still see at this point a few $1,000s because the bulk's already been distributed.
That might be another record for this. Maybe the USG president should remember that, or be informed that the majority of the RSOs that we're funding do cater to undergraduates. Undergraduates take advantage of the fundings of GPSC. And a lot of their awards that are given out from these RSOs requesting money are also given to undergraduates, especially writing competitions, art, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are open to serving both communities, understanding that, especially serving as mentors and serving our communities as graduate students, that we do. We think it's great if they get student attendance from both bodies, graduate and undergraduate students, and it serves the full community. And so I think that that's also great to say on record as well, and that's something that we aim for, and I hope it's something that is considered as we move forward and continue supporting those organizations. But now moving forward, with who we met with today, we met with the International Student Council. As you know, they have a wonderful event happening tomorrow. I'm going to pass around these posters. If you've never been, they have their food festival happening tomorrow. This event happens all week long. They have their parade of flags, their proclamation. The food fair is tomorrow, and they have a wonderful cultural show that happens on Friday. Last year we gave them a total of $1,500. Now with this new amount provided to event funding, we recommend giving them the same value. So we recommend at this time giving them $1,500 to support their event, which is ongoing this week. Can I get a motion?
Yeah.
All right. Second. All in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? All right, passes for $1,500. We also traditionally, in the past, last year, we also supported another event of theirs. They host the International Student Council Intercultural Games. This is an opportunity for both those who are international students as well as domestic students to interact with each other in almost like an Olympic-like setting. And so it's a really fun thing that happens in March 15th through April 15th. And so last year we provided them $565. I would like to just offer them $500 this year, mainly because they said that their participation is they saw a dip in participation, and so that just because of and they weren't sure if that was because of enrollment or whatnot. So based on that, I just wanted to do a flat $500. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right. Moving right along. And then the third and final organization that we met with this evening was the Student Bar Association, and they held their bar admission workshop. And this was the professional development for all within the law school. And so they asked for a small amount of $150. So I would like to recommend that at this time for supporting this workshop and for professional development for the law students and the Student Bar Association. Motion?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Fantastic. $150 will go to SBA. We then have two other people who we'll be meeting with next week. And then based on the remaining amount, potentially, I'll still take applications. So if you know in your department that you have an event coming up, make sure they get it in this week so then that we can see and meet with them on our next upcoming meeting. But beyond that, I will then place on our website that we are no longer accepting any applications for event funding once we get through that meeting, unless we have any remaining funds. The final thing on my agenda is, now that we move past this, we are entering into our research award season. Once again, if you'd like to be on that and serve on that committee, as I mentioned, we review applications. Last year we had quite a few, I think nearly 100 or so applications, and then from that we select typically around 5 to 6 individuals, giving up to $1,000 award. So it gives us an opportunity to look through some of the great scholarship that's happening on campus and to reward that. And so if you'd like to serve on that committee, it's pretty fun. I like to call this the Fab OLISC committee, because we're the fee allocation board, Fab, or Fab OLISC. So if you'd like to serve on that, please see me after, and I'm happy to put you on our committee. And that's all for me. Thank you so much for your for your time and for your consideration on that transfer.
How much longer is it going to be? 5 minutes. I just need to take one vote, and then I will let everybody go.
Your one vote? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Derek.
Okay, I need one thing from you guys. Well, 2 things. I lied. Responses to straw man, just do it. I can't really say anything else. Just please, for the love of God, do it.
About the boilerplate emails, make that easier.
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm not going to go through and shame those reps who haven't done it, but you know who you are. Please do it. The other thing is, I need 3 people to volunteer as tribute for the Student Trustee Election Committee.
What is that?
I need the folks by Friday, so that they can actually set up the schedule to start meeting. So once I get the nominees to Tina, we can start setting it up. I did submit revisions to the student trustee election process. I know this was a big deal last time, including decoupling the student trustee from the USG election cycle, a requirement that each representative come meet with USG and GPSC so we can actually talk to them, and a couple of other housekeeping things that change, particular administrative and other kinds of stuff. Basically, most of the stuff that we wanted last year but didn't get, we got this year, except for the whole, weird proportionment of grad student votes, because that's illegal. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about 3 volunteers.
Yes. You just email me.
Oh, okay.
Just email me.
This person just needs to sit on a committee? Like, we're not running for trustee?
No, you just sit on the committee and
Okay, thank God.
and like adjudicate the people who are running. If you know people who want to run, you should encourage them to run. That's
Motion, we table the rest of the agenda until next week.
Second.
2 weeks.
Yeah. 2 weeks.
Unless, is there anything that can be emailed or needs to be emailed immediately?
Yeah, I can email them.
Okay.
If you got, no, you already talked about that thing. The GSS.
Yeah, now I'm
See, this is why I'm sick. All right, motion to adjourn, so I can go.
Second. Hands. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.